Hello and welcome back to Pharmacist Diaries, the podcast that reveals the secret lives of pharmacists, from where their journeys began, where they are now, and everything in between. I am your host, Anisha Patel, and today is the second episode of the Pharmacist Diaries Roadshow. I am delighted to introduce Fan Cheng to the podcast this week. Be prepared to hear a lot of laughter during this episode as Fan and I enjoy a fantastic conversation. Her energy is infectious and I absolutely loved getting to know her. I know that she's keen to share this episode with her family, and I know for a fact that her mum will be so proud to hear her career story. She is absolutely brilliant and she has no idea how amazing she truly is. I was in awe of all the things that she's achieved, and currently what she's doing is insane when it comes to the amount of work that she's doing and the dedication she has to the paediatric field. At the moment, she is a specialist pharmacist at Great Ormond Street Hospital, specializing in immunology, rheumatology, and dermatology. 3 specialties in one. I mean, that's incredible just in itself. And I love that she just has taken on so many fields and loves everything that she does within it. She is also a research fellow with the National Institute for Health and Care Research. And she is also a Pharmacogenetic Champion with Great Ormond Street Hospital. She is a member of a working group with NHS England on pharmacogenomics. She is also the co-chair of the London group of the Neonatal and Paediatric Pharmacist group, and she is a key member to 2 specialist interest groups in both immunology and rheumatology. Is it just me? Or does everyone just think that this is amazing? I love it. This episode also highlights the importance of strong relationships with patients and families, and how Fan builds meaningful connection with her patients and provides personalized care. Let's get into the episode, guys. You're going to love it. Good to go. Here we are. Welcome to Pharmacist Diaries, Fan.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
A bit nervous. With such a big mic right in front of me.
Yeah, no, ignore it. Pretend it's not there and it's me and you, maybe on a beach having mocktails together, enjoying conversations.
2 meters away, safe distance apart.
COVID friendly.
Yes.
Thanks for making the time to come onto the podcast, first of all.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, looking forward to having our conversation and getting to know you, for sure. You gave me an amazing history of your career in email, so it kind of gave me lots of opportunity to ask lots of questions. But I always start the episode by asking why you became a pharmacist in the first place.
Actually, never thought why I'm not being a pharmacist. Because my dad used to be a surgeon, and now he's retired as a Chinese medicine doctor. My mom's a nurse. So I grew up in A&E department in the theatres, thinking like growing up, I need to do something health related. And my dad said to me, like, don't be a doctor, because female in the doctor's world is not a fair game. It's a lot of hard work. I want to have a nice life. And my mum said, don't even think to become a nurse. You'll kill someone before you can even say the word nursing. So I was like, okay, fine. So I've become a pharmacist.
Safety officer.
Yeah. And actually, it's not a bad choice. And if I would do it all over again, I would still choose pharmacy.
How many years have you been qualified now?
Oh, do I have to say it?
Yeah, go on.
I don't even know. I qualified in 2005.
Oh, okay. So around nearly 20.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That's old.
No, that's not old. That's exciting and inspiring.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what university was like for you and where you kind of envisioned what type of pharmacist you were going to be.
I studied in Nottingham. And I know...
Same as Steve?
Yes, Nottingham Rules. And I always been a hospital pharmacist. I never considered any other career pathways. It's just very clear in my head. I just want to be a hospital pharmacist to do some clinical work, and yeah.
Did you do any placements during your undergraduate degree that helped you to realise that pathway? How did you know?
Yeah, I did some placement with Lloyd's in my second year. And obviously, did my pre-reg. I did 4 weeks in the community placement as well. I love it. It's a really nice community. People coming for chats. We have like older people coming in every day just for a chat because they're so lonely. I just want someone to chat. It's a really lovely and supportive environment. But I still find hospital a bit to my taste. I've got my vision already set for hospital, like that said, ever since I studied pharmacy. So yeah, it's become just an easy choice for me.
Yeah. And you started your first job in London, is that right?
No, I actually started in Essex.
Oh, in Essex, yes.
Yeah, Harlow.
Harlow,
yeah. Very small town.
Why did you choose there?
Because they offered the first one to offer me a job.
Fair enough. There's quite a few people who kind of go down that route, because actually it's quite hard in around February time, right? When all the applications come out for Band 6 hospital jobs.
Yeah.
And sometimes the residency and kind of step programs come out at slightly different times. And then you get offered a potential job, but there are more applications kind of lingering, and it feels very unprofessional to say yes to an organization, try for an interview, and then, aim to switch, because the world of pharmacy is quite small, and people kind of remember that. And
especially when you have exam to contemplate, I just want this job security that I've got a job that I can go to. And it's residence, so I can actually stay, because my family is not based in UK. So I want somewhere that I can stay with, like as a residency program. So I know I can somewhere to stay, and I've got a training program that I can go to. I can go sign to my diploma later on. As part of the interview questions, like, can I go to enroll to the clinical pharmacy diploma? So yeah, you can. So like, yeah, done deal.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's a good start in terms of building a foundation and completing the diploma.
Definitely.
And I mean, there's lots of advantages of doing residency programs and the STEP programs, but there's also a lot of advantages of some of the smaller hospitals as well. You get a lot more attention. You get that kind of like one-on-one support where you're not competing against, 20 other sort of newly qualified pharmacists. So it's quite a nice environment. And I've done a bit of both, and I actually like both equally, but at the moment, obviously, I'm in a big teaching hospital and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
And I believe I'll probably stick to the larger hospitals, which is quite good.
In the smaller ones, you've got more opportunity and it's quicker to implement the changes that you like to see, and you can propose things much easier, and you can see the results much quicker because it's such a small hospital and small community. You can just like, oh, I've got this idea, can we do it? Bounce around ideas, you can get it done quite relatively quickly. And then you've got more opportunities because there are only a few people on the ground.
Yeah.
And you've got more opportunities like, okay, why don't you take this project, run with it, and we'll support you. So you've got different opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And where was it that you found pediatrics in your life?
I did, after finish my Harlow rotations, I did the Band 6 rotations there. And then just got my Band 7 rotations, and the guys an opportunity come up as a rotational Band 7. And part of the rotations are pediatrics. And I did it and I just loved it. No turning back.
Yeah, I love it when I'm, talking to other pediatric pharmacists, because there's always that one little point where they say, I found it and I loved it. And I've never turned back. Like, this is it. Steve said it as well. Offran said it as well.
It's so weird because when I was in Harlow, I remember myself vividly saying, I will never do pediatrics in my life. I'll never do rheumatology and dermatology in my life. And look where I am
and
right
look
now.
Where you are. Yeah, literally. The rheumatology, immunology, dermatology queen.
Yeah, wow. A bit more experience in that.
What is it about pediatrics that you love so much?
It's a completely different world to adults. Like if you feel like adults, GI surgery, cardiac, gastro is one thing. In pediatric itself is a specialty. And under those, all different like cardiac and renal and stuff is another specialty all by itself. So it's really different kettle fish, and you can really apply the science of what you learned as a pharmacist into practice every single day. You need to challenge yourself every single day. Is it the right drug, right ingredient? Is the dose correct? Nothing is the standardized thing. How you can help the children take the medicines. How can you get the medicines to the children? Because they don't have access to a lot of medicines. So these things are so interesting. And I think this is where pharmacist input is needed most because of the risk involved and all the pharmaceutical knowledge we need to link everything together to provide the plan for the children.
Yeah, amazing. And so when you were at Evelina doing your rotation, what ward were you on?
I was on the surgical ward.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Which was Mountain Ward at the time?
Mountain, yes. This is when I first did as part of my pediatric, as well as part of my rotations, part of the adult rotations. But then when I become the Band 7 pediatric rotation at Evelina, I did NICU as well. And I love it so much.
I do love neonates. And Sian is our queen of neonates,
yes, of
at
course.
Evelina.
Yes.
But it's such a lovely specialty to work in. And it's nice to get to know the parents because it's quite a vulnerable time for them and the child. But the input that we have from the pharmacy perspective is great. There's a lot of impact that we make in terms of administration, looking at the prescribing, the safety, putting in guidelines into place like formulary. How do you get doses, tiny doses from standardized, adult medications? It's, there are a lot of challenges that you have to face, a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome.
And a lot of clinical dilemmas, what to do when there's absolutely no evidence at all. Like if you imagine about 90% of the medicines used in neonates are unlicensed, where they don't have a license for children, not even just like in neonates. What can you do when they're, like we always say about evidence-based practice, but in children, like it's really common to use unlicensed medicines. It's almost like inequality of access to medicines for children themselves. When they are most high at risk, the developmental growth changes every day, but you don't have the proper support for them to go through clinical trials to find the right doses, the side effects, whether it works for them or not. It's really different.
It's part of the beauty of being in this specialist area, though, isn't it? You've got the opportunity to work with people who want to do the research and get that evidence in order to kind of make those inequalities and the kind of statistics behind that reduce.
Yeah, and that's where I first feel I've fully embedded in the MDT is when I work in NICU, in natal ICU, because you are so working alongside dietitians and the nurses and the registrars and consultants every single day, talking about the PN for the babies, where you can fit in, you can just squeeze one more calories in, then you'll be a winner for the day, and what happens if you have too low glucose, or the liver is not metabolizing the lipids, not handling lipids very well because they're so premature. And you see in babies like 500 grams, 600 grams. And so what I can do for you, darling. So all these things really, really brings, I really love doing a clinical pharmacist in neonates or like in children, because this is where we actually fulfill the duty of a pharmacist to safeguard these children and generate evidence for them as well. And it's when this rotation, actually, I co-write my first paper with a registrar there on neonatal PNs.
Oh, amazing.
So it's literally like, okay, what can we do to support this cohort of people when we just don't quite know what to do with the PNs? And that's why starting my first taste in research is like, this is the best rotation ever.
What was the topic within PN?
So basically, at that point in time, ASPGAN, which is like the standard for PNs, they haven't updated the guidelines for a very long time.
Okay.
And literally, we've done an audit to see our use of PN, does it actually meet the guidelines, and whether a standardized spec at that point in time, is it the way forward?
Okay.
So we reviewed evidence, expecting the new ASPGAN guideline to come out. So we're literally like, this is where it's lacking, and we're really looking forward to the new guideline.
That's quite exciting as a Band 7 pharmacist to be
Yeah.
be involved in something that impacts a lot of people.
Yeah.
In terms of, gathering evidence, seeing the outcome, and then impacting the neonatal cohort.
Yeah, because we had a pharmacist visiting from Paris at that point. So she did an audit. So we literally, from her audit, said, let's do something. We need to write something, publish our data out, because it's rare to have this data available to us in real life data. Let's make good use of it. We learn from this data. And what we can hopefully see, the new aspect can reflect what we found. So, yeah.
What was it about the experience of data collection and research that you were, I guess, passionate about at that time?
At that point in time, we actually, when we do the scanning for literature, we actually got anything on neonates. It's really, really rare to have reporting on neonates and parental nutrition. And there's a debate whether we use standard bag or not using standard bag. And hoping with the data audit that we actually do, kind of satisfy to us that standard bag is the way forward for us. And we, from our center, as a large pediatric and neonatal center, we share experience for the centers to see if other people can take some information, some learning from my experience. And a review that we've done with the existing literature as well.
Mm. And you're smiling, which means you obviously really enjoyed it at the time, and it's nice that you get to kind of share that on the podcast.
It's traumatizing when you get the review back. They tear your article apart, but
still, it's a really good learning opportunity in terms of your growth as a pharmacist. And
yes,
these little pockets of sort of research that you can get involved with, which there are so many opportunities in pediatrics. There's always questions that we are asking ourselves or unknowns. Normally it's like, oh, well, how come there is no evidence on this? Well, hey, this is an opportunity for you to get involved or do some research to try and find that information, because you know that it will impact the patient quite significantly, or that cohort of patients as well. Yeah,
because no two children are the same. You have accessed the data, you have the experience, you've got the relationship with the parents, with the children, with the MDT team. Pharmacy is a very ideal position to actually generate evidence to support our own work, because we all rely on evidence, like to do the guidelines, to do the standardizings. And if we don't generate the evidence, who's going to do it? So we are in a very well placed, situated, very well trained, equipped to do that.
Yeah.
We just need to actually think about, okay, research shouldn't be just on the side bonus, but it should be part of our integral job to do it every single day. It doesn't need to be a huge clinical trial thing. Just a little audit and the project can get involved bigger and bigger, getting your collaborations to work. It may come into something substantial.
It's quite rewarding to also do a poster presentation or get to go to a conference to basically showcase your work as well.
Definitely.
You know, the end goal is quite a rewarding experience.
Yeah, because when I would attend the last NPPG conference last year, I saw one of the posters used quoting the paper I was part of. I was
really?
Oh my God, they used my dose.
That's amazing.
I was like, oh my God, it's really, really nice. That actually be standardized against and being quoted. It's like, it actually does worth something.
Yeah, definitely.
People do use it, yeah.
I love that. So you did a rotation in NICU, and obviously the Evelina rotations are usually, as a Band 7, are 1 year long. So where else did you go?
I think I did a bit of renal as well. Yes, I did a bit of renal with the transplant and the dialysis on beach.
Like
I love it. Because I did the adult equivalent when I was at Guy's Thomas.
I did an adult equivalent when I was a resi as well, and loved it.
And MDT teams are part of your team, and you can do the transplant clinics with them.
Yeah, education is just absolutely empowering the patient is, at the forefront of a renal transplant ward. The impact that you have on parents and patients is amazing, and because it's a long-term life sort of condition, you see the child grow from potentially, a 3 to 4 year old all the way up to kind of adult age. And that is a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
Though you see some hurdles around the teenage years,
Yes.
you're still part of that patient's journey. And just to see them developing, it's, for people like Will, who obviously been in that specialty for a long time and he knows the patients really well, it must feel really good to be part of their life because it plays a massive part in their day to day.
Exactly. And then they always when they walk past, they just put their head through the pharmacy dispensers like, hi, I'm here, just to touch base with them, even though they're not come in for medicine review or for clinics. It's quite nice to have a really good relationship building with the patients and parents. And you need that, especially for long-term people when potentially they've been on this mess for a very long time. And at some point, they may question themselves, why I have to keep on taking these medicines? Can I just have one day miss and let it become non-compliant further down the road? So building a good relationship with them is actually quite nice to tap in and actually make a plan to say, okay, why don't we agree on some things that you can, have some leeway to play around with the medicines. I'd rather have this open dialogue when they be honest with you and make a plan around the way of living, the lifestyles, rather than they just do it behind the back when they have no support at all.
I mean, there's a lot of conditions in pediatrics which are long-term. I mean, look at sickle cell disease at the Evelina. You've got type 1 diabetics that get diagnosed on Mountain Ward. And you see patients come into hospital on a somewhat regular basis.
Yeah.
So your kind of regular inpatients.
Yeah.
And their families.
Yes.
And you get really involved with the parents. You know about the siblings. You know what issues they have at school. You know what kind of things they have to juggle.
Yeah.
And being a parent myself now, there's a whole new perspective when I work as a pediatric pharmacist. And it's really nice to see them transition in terms of the independence.
Yes.
Starting off very much, relying on the parent to do all the work, and then getting to the point where they transition to doing a lot of their, medication adherence themselves.
Yeah.
Which is nice to be part of that journey.
Yeah, and you'll be amazed. A lot of children can actually say the medical terms really well. Some people say, I have got JIA. It's like, what is JIA? Juvenile idiopathic arthritis. It's like, that's a big word coming out from a 6-year-old or 5-year-old,
I know.
It's like, oh my God. And they can tell you, well, not exactly the names. So I kicked this one for that and this one for that. I know what I did. My MRI shows like,
whoa.
Hey.
Yeah, we've had a few of the renal transplant children, the 5-year-olds, who know you do a drug history, you don't need the parent.
Yeah.
They are just so educated on what they're doing, what the tablets look like, how often they take them, what they're used for, and they can pronounce all the names correctly, which is very cute.
Yes, exactly. So every time when I even talk to the parents, I actually introduce myself to the child first and then to the parents. And I always look at the child because they are the ones that actually like, oh, why are you not involved with me? It's my care. Some feedback from the children just like, I want to be involved in my care. I want you to look into my eyes and ask me about my conditions, how I feel like, what our medications are for. So it's actually really nice to actually get them involved because that's how it can kind of transition the care to themselves, like looking after their own medical, health or their medicines, because they have been involved in day one of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a pharmacist in pediatrics, I think there's a lot of skill involved with kind of navigating the language that you use with children and what you might say to a 3-year-old versus a 6-year-old versus a 10-year-old, which is a really important skill. Even if you're counseling on an inhaler or asking them how they feel when they have an asthma attack.
Yeah.
What a 3-year-old might tell you in terms of detail is very vague compared to a 6 or a 9-year-old. And then it's quite interesting to see that development in terms of how they engage with you as well.
Yeah.
I love peds.
I love it's just so fascinating. And
so you obviously enjoyed a lot of kind of the pediatric rotations as a band 7.
Yeah.
What kind of made you transition towards Great Ormond Street as an alternative place to work?
I feel I am very I'm ready to move the next step forward. Because 7, you've got a lot of support for you to do other things. And when you're actually removed from a environment you're very comfortable in, that's where the challenges are. And then when you take more responsibilities as a senior pharmacist, you may need to make the judgment call that you were scared of to make when you're at 7 if no one to check. Or like, I just want to double check this is my decision and stick with it. It's a big transition. And there's come point in life and I just want some deep independence so I can actually make some independent judgments and take responsibility for it.
Yeah. Did you do anything to kind of prepare yourself for that transition from a 7 to 8A?
In Evelina, they actually helped me with a lot of projects that I get involved in.
Okay.
To like audits and things like that. The clinical governance side of things helped me with let me write some guidelines, doing some like mass optimization projects to actually give me a feel what it's going to be like, and also equip me with the skills that is transferable no matter what specialties I'm going to take. Wherever I'm going to go, these are transfer skills that's very usable, applicable in any walks of pharmacy life, really.
I understand you like being a trainee, a pre-reg or a trainee pharmacist tutor.
Yes, they teach me a lot, and hopefully I did try to guide their way as well. Because everyone's been there as a trainee pharmacist. They've been feeling some helpless and the stress involved, getting all the evidences together, passing the dreaded exam that I've been like literally sleep on BNF forever and ever and ever for the whole 9 months.
It's a hard year.
Very.
I mean, I think we expect, especially in hospital rotational kind of jobs, and now when you've got the split roles, you may be enjoying, 2 different experiences, but in order to gain the right evidence in the right place, it's a lot of organization. You're getting used to a 9-to-5 job. You're having to study at the same time. You might be commuting, far to get back and from work. You spend 6 months potentially in one area. And then, if you're in hospital, you might go to a GP practice or a community pharmacy where the environment is completely different. And you feel like you're, stepping into your first day at work.
Yeah.
Though obviously that sort of rotational type training year and adapting to new environments gives you, I guess, more courage, and you become more comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's a great learning experience, but it's tough. And I think we have really high expectations in the hospital environment in terms of what our trainees are expected to do. So they do need a lot of mentorship and they do need a lot of support. And I think in the last few years with COVID as well, a lot of people are having high levels of stress. They've got personal situations at home. I've had quite a few trainees who've been experiencing quite a bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's been different to the previous years that I've worked. Have you noticed anything similar?
I have stopped mentoring for just 1 year during the COVID times, but I'm starting to mentoring again the last year. I feel people are actually managing quite well in terms of using online learning resources than they used to before COVID.
True. Yeah.
And there are a lot of information that are now available to them electronically compared to COVID. And the exam style has changed. The way of supervision may have changed. The way assessing the tutors may have changed, not just like come every day face-to-face anymore. Just different ways of working around things. But because it is only the first time they actually do the pre-reg, it's the only time they've been doing pre-reg, I'm not too sure if they experience differently. That'd be quite nice to research to actually see how they do.
Oh no, your brain is ticking, your eyebrows are going up, already coming up with some ideas.
But that is really interesting because you're actually adjusting to 9 to 5, just standing up 9 to 5 is really hard. I remember myself for the first month, I literally just go home at 5 and crash land on my bed.
Yeah, totally.
And wake up the next day because I'm just not used to studying 8 to 9 hours a day. And then adjusting to yourself, obviously family life still happen. that personal life still happen. All these things muddled together, you need to now work. So as a team, all these conflicts they may need to resolve, how to interact with other people, give them a good impression, the potential employers in the future. All these things, it is a lot to take in, especially when you're in isolation the last 2-3 years. And then being work full-time, it is a big challenge, a big ask from them. But I have to say, I've met a lot of training pharmacists. They've got a lot to offer, and they've got this strength in them that they can actually persevere and sail through it. And it's amazing.
I've talked about this before on the podcast, that we underestimate training pharmacists and newly qualified pharmacists, because they learn so much in a short space of time, and it's just trying to, I guess, mentor and support them into their kind of early years. And make the most out of the skills that we know that they have, and also helping them to identify what their skills are individually, not just as a cohort and what their expectations are as a pharmacist, but really honing in on, hey, look, you're really good at, this data collection, and you've, published something during, your training pharmacist year. Maybe you should consider going into research and potentially looking at a career pathway which highlights those skills. Or someone who's very kind of clinical, maybe they enjoy kind of communication and consultation skill, and helping them to identify, a pathway that suits them. And not just in hospital, but, you're looking at developing clinics, whether that's in a GP surgery, or are they better based in a high street pharmacy at the heart of a community and setting up a travel clinic or vaccination clinic. It's I think there's a lot that we can do as experienced pharmacists to support them through that pathway.
Yeah, because I am an observative learner, so I reflective learner, so I really observe people. And I always tell my pediatricians, like, just observe how people work. You may or may not agree how they work, but you can take the things that you agree with and be part of your integrate, become part of your practice. If you things that you don't feel comfortable with, or you don't feel you like it, you just be a know for yourself. This is what I need to avoid for the pitfalls, or things I need to strengthen myself when it comes to my position when I become a qualified pharmacist. And there's a lot of responsibility on the tutor or even being a mentor. Just not to guide them to just extend the pathway, but actually help them to explore different options available to them. You can just link that down of networking. I was like, oh, this is opportunity. Why don't you go that? And like, I push my pediatricians, like, why don't you publish your orders and as a abstract presented in conferences? And this is how we share learnings. It's so unique. And gosh, you are now privileged to work with a cohort, just a huge cohort of patients with rare diseases. Why don't you publish your experience, like even as an abstract or as a poster, or like maybe an oral presentation if you got lucky? There's only, say they can say yes or no, but at least it's got a good opportunity to get involved. And then you can get to think a bit more about clean governance, which they may not observe as a pediatric pharmacist, but like they may have a standard knowledge, but when you actually do a publication, you need to think a little bit more, you need to research a bit more. And so, oh, this is why we link this and this rotation together, and this is where it clicks. So it's really nice to see them actually develop. So this is why I did it. Oh, I understand now.
It's a bit like having children.
Yes. and obviously try to steer pediatric pharmacy is the best route in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, I mean, they are, they're not babies, but, they come out of university, but they're still sort of naive and green to the life of a working adult. So it's really nice to see them develop, especially if you're a tutor. It's really nice to see quite a steep kind of level of growth. And I saw this when I was the pre-reg director for a year. I covered a mat leave post, and I had 9 trainees. And they were all so different, and how quick they were to kind of develop and just get into the training year varied significantly. Some were just like on it, super organized, super efficient, and others needed a lot of support. And sometimes you need to extend your network as a tutor and reach out to other people for ideas. And and give them emotional support in other ways, or mental health support or financial support, whatever it is that they need, because there are personal situations that impact your work life as well, and helping them to kind of get that balance.
Definitely.
So when you applied for your job at Great Ormond Street, what were you applying for? What was the first job that you had?
It's labeled as Rheumatology and Dermatology. But when I started the post, it becomes Immunology, Rheumatology and Dermatology.
And what made you think that 3 specialties was the way forward in one job?
I have no idea.
That's a lot of work. That is splitting yourself.
It is a brand new post.
I just feel like, because I do pediatrics with palliative care and education, and I was doing some formulary.
Yeah.
And I was also supporting Mountain Ward because they currently don't have an 8A. So I was just kind of like the go-to person if they need any help. But being split into so many directions means that you are kind of moving very slowly. You might be moving forward, but you're moving forward very slowly because you're split and your time is split. Yeah. Your energy is split. And it's very hard to be in multiple places in terms of being organized and efficient, especially for the job that I have, where you're partly at the hospital, partly at the university. So it's 2 email accounts, 2 sets of staff, students in one place, students coming into the workplace, and there's, a real mix. How did you cope with that transition?
Well, before I applied for a job, I actually sat down with my line manager to be literally say what role is going to be look like, how we're going to plan it, what is the rationale of developing this brand new post, what should be the priority of it. So before I start, I already have a good idea what needs to be done in the urgent, like in the immediate.
That's a good idea.
Future. And when I go into the interview, I know exactly what I wanted for this post and what I envisioned this post to be. It's really good that they actually offered me a very long time to sit me down and then go through the things they wanted that person to do. So I can actually research on the NHS commissioning policies and these things to actually see what is the pharmacist's input they expect to see and what we can realistic offer with one person coming to this new job.
Yeah.
And what are the high-risk things we can, like low-hanging fruits that we can actually tackle in the first, because it was funded for 2 years initially as a charity. So in those 2 years, what I can achieve and what I can demonstrate to justify my position.
What was it like setting up a new service? Did you do anything specific in your role at Evelina that helped you in terms of, say, transferable skills?
I talked to Scott, who is the rheumatology guru at Guy's Thomas at the
Good
site.
idea.
Just have a good, thorough understanding of what is involved, like at least in the adult side of things.
Yeah.
And then I can kind of see what things I need to do in order to prepare myself to understand at least like the things that pediatric indications, the clinical diseases that you usually see in pediatrics. So I can actually kind of understand a little bit, so I'm not going, completely naive about the conditions. It's impossible to study everything, but at least you know roughly the terms and medicines you're going to deal with. With immunology as well, any kind of website to look at, any communication things, any brand new nice guidelines that come out that actually may be able to help. These things just give me a good idea of what I'm going to see. And when I start looking at these patients, I'm not completely naive. It's like, oh my God, I've got 3 specialties to learn. What should I do?
Yeah. It's quite hard to split your time in terms of learning the clinical topics, but also building a service, managing the consultants and what their wants are, managing the pharmacy department in terms of the budget and what they're looking for, what are the needs of the patients, commissioning, like that's a lot. But when you break it down into smaller pieces, like you're saying, and you reach out to your network and see what they did. I did the same with palliative care, Bumik.
Yeah.
He was my first phone call. Once I found out that, he was the pharmacist here at Great Ormond Street, I just asked for a Teams call. And I know he's doing it sort of 5 days a week. And I just asked his advice. What would you do if you only had one day? What would be your priority in your current job if you were only given one day? And then how would you build up to more days? And that really helped me. That really helped me to kind of look at the basics, which was clinically screening, symptom management plans. Like that's the basic. That needs to be done for all of your patients. See how you get on. I audited my time. I audited every day that I worked for an entire year and what I did every single day of that year. Just really brief summary on a Word document. Sometimes I just write it up in my diary, take me literally a minute, and then type it up into a Word document at the end of the week. And by the end of the year, I was able to put a business case together to increase my hours because I was demonstrating my impact in terms of the service and also, you know, what we could be doing for our patients that we're not, and identifying the gaps in practice where I wasn't spending enough time. I spent a lot of hours doing inquiries. We identified how many parents contacted the consultants within our team with medication inquiries that then came to me. And a lot of them were supply issues, GPs not wanting to prescribe in primary care, medication errors because there's been a switch of formulation from something we've provided and then what they've got in the community pharmacies unable to order unlicensed medicines, you know, the usual. The usual in the world of pediatrics. But it was extremely time consuming dealing with that. And I just thought to myself, like, this we need to find a way to solve this. So part of my role then developed into supporting GPs and community pharmacies with education and training. How can we support our primary care network to understand more about palliative care medicines so that these issues don't arise in the first place? Our consultants do not need to be called at 3 a.m. for inquiries which could be done quite simply during the day, or parents running out of medications because they're begging their pharmacy for orders, and then, you know, the pharmacy's just not getting back to them in the community, and then just finding last minute solutions and calling outpatient pharmacies in their local area or their local pediatrician, and that's time consuming. It's a lot of time that goes into doing that, and yes, it's part and parcel of my job, but I was just thinking outside the box that how can I stop this from happening? So
I did similar thing as well. Just document, like, in a day how my role's been split across the 3 specialties. It's almost like impossible. No, it's just like whoever shout the loudest will get my attention. Whoever is more pushing, just like because we've got children with rare diseases. If got someone is really critical ill, even though my number of inpatients is really it's not a lot compared to like local hospitals. One patient can take me maybe like half a day or even a whole day just to sort out something because it's such rare. Maybe we don't even have a dose for them.
Okay.
You don't have the drug for them. You don't have a licensed medicines. And what can you do next? What should you do? The patient's dying in front of you. What can you do? And situations like that, if your days occupied by that one patient, you still have other patients that are still sick you need to look after. And then you've got 3 specialties with different, like, you're pulling in 3 different directions really hard. And it's not just time management. It's not just, no matter how well you do your time management, sometimes your time just don't have enough for all these specialties. And justifying your time and then documenting it is a very good way to show to other people, this is what my work need is. This is what I have done to maybe save the cost some trust, or like preventing medicines errors, or like make sure that I've implemented something to prevent errors and to help patient safety. It can justify why you need more pharmacy time. Everything we do is almost like behind the scene.
I know.
People can see. We've got emails from all across the country because we're a specialist center. People keep asking you, have you got experience in this and that? Like, you've got 1 or 2 emails a day, it can mount up to quite a lot of emails and quite a lot of your time as well. And that's why we actually set up Pharmacist Network. within our specialties. So I have set up a pediatric rheumatology network, and also set up an immunology and allergist pharmacist network as well, just so that we can actually share our experience via the platforms. So not just one person get all the questions. We can actually share our experience from different centers and ask the questions from different centers, share the guidelines if we like. So this is very useful, especially in like rare diseases.
Absolutely. And also, sharing information, even guidelines or procedures or ideas helps to save a lot of time.
Definitely.
That you would have spent doing that on your own, when you can have a look at what someone else is doing, what service they provide, what projects they've worked on, what research they're doing, and then try to implement something similar potentially where you work, and not doing all that groundwork on your own.
Yeah, or even share job descriptions so we can create the same jobs.
That's good, actually. Yeah. Job descriptions are a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I know that you've got you said a rheumatology pharmacist network, which you've done through NPPG.
Yes.
You've got an immunology pharmacist network that's independent, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously you are the co-chair of the London NPPG as well.
Yeah, in this group, yeah.
Yeah. When I was reading all of this, on top of the fact that you've got a triple A job and you do research just, willy-nilly on the side, how do you manage your time?
Just being very flexible and very clever, I guess. The thing is, I have been in this job for quite a while, so the clinical side of things, I can condense them and use them very effectively. That help me squeeze a bit more time, and I invest a lot in developing my juniors, so they really support me to do the ground job. And unfortunately, because they are so equipped, they always leave me. But in a way, because I really like this. When I get a new Band 7, I just like, what are your aspirations? If you don't have, let's set one. And then I allocate jobs for them, like projects for them that really help them to develop. If they're almost ready as an 8A, you just need some clinical governance skills. So, okay, the guidelines is your responsibility. These are the great deadlines, roll with it. Like if they really want projects, like, okay, why don't we do some optimization in this area? We can do that. But first of all, I need to make sure you are clinically up to date. You know what you're doing with this cohort, when to shout for help. Make sure that you are happy and integrate into the team before I let them off. So it's almost like a reward thing. If you've done these things, you can have these things. And then if they actually up on the ground and really running, then it releases me to do a lot of other things that may need a senior's attention. The research just happens because we have a tricky patient, and then we're just literally writing it up from experience. So it's not something we just deliberately do research on. It's just most of my research based on the clinical experience that we have, and then just sharing our experience via a published journal.
Interesting. You've got lots going on.
Yes.
And that's we've not even finished with your job title, because you look at novel therapies and pre-existing therapies in terms of kind of like remodeling them in terms of how we're using them. And you're very passionate about the fact that there are inequalities with children and access to medicine. So I guess this has formed the basis of the research that you're getting involved with.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
With my immunology role, most of my children with immunodeficiencies will have a very short life expectancy without any corrective therapies like bone marrow transplant or gene therapies. And with this cohort of patients, when they undergo these corrective therapies, they usually have their immune system suppressed for a very, very long time, or they don't have an immune system to start with. And they are very prone to have infections. And if you have a fungal infection, you've got a high chance of mortality. And we have antifungals available, not a lot, and not a lot of them are licensed in children. And we usually take levels. But for these patients, because of the long half-life, you need 1 week to get into levels. And then the levels get sent to another lab in Bristol. It takes a week to come back. Look at the level. It's not therapeutic. need another 2 weeks of turnaround time. So all these 4 weeks of not having a good therapy, the fungal is actually eating away the patient's brains or lungs or livers. So this is a huge problem for me. And then I remembered there was a mum screaming in the corridor because her child didn't make it. And she was screaming her heart out. And I was like, what can I do for these children? And on the same time, the level comes back from another child. And then the doctor said to me, it's funny, it's never in range. It's something's normal for them. So why do you not have a dose that is specifically for children? We can get it to the level that we need on day 1. Why do you have to wait for 2 weeks or 4 weeks to know the result?
It feels so unfair.
It is, and because we don't have a license for children for all these medicines, that is crucial for them. And we don't have a lot of antifungals in the pipeline at all. And when I was talking through that, I was looking for a research title for the clinical, what did I do? I did upgrade with the diploma to become a
Master's,
MSc in clinical pharmacy practice. And I was looking for a research title, and I bounced my idea with Professor Joe Standing. I was like, we have models that we can do that. We can study the levels taken from children from real life, and then we can analyze them statistically to actually see if we have these patients with these specific characters, would they have a chance to reach a therapeutic level with these doses? And if not, can we simulate doses to suggest a dose that maybe a higher dose, take them to a level that we like? And then we can just see in practice whether these doses are viable for them. So we can do a lot of simulations. And the good thing about this is you don't need clinical trials. Well, you can do this clinical trials, but using real life data, you can just take 1 or 2 samples from a lot of patients and analyze them as a population. If you've done the clinical trials, you may need like 5 or 6 samples just to describe how the children handle medicines. With this modeling, you may just take 2 or 3 samples per patient, analyze them as a cohort. And you've got any characters, just like if the patient's diarrhea, if they got some genetic makeup that may affect drug handling, we can just check whether these doses need to change because of patient's characteristics. That can actually allow us to say, okay, from children under 2, this is the doses we need. Maybe a different, and with adolescent, this is doses you need. So you can actually tailor the doses based on the patient's population. So it's really like a step towards personalized medicines, which we don't have at the moment for children. And even you can just do the same thing for adults. And then you can actually, with those simulations, you can actually help planning clinical trials in advance as well. So you don't need to do trial and error all the time.
So did you do this while you were at Great Ormond Street, or you were still at Evelina at that time?
I was at Great Ormond Street, yeah.
And was it within immunology?
When I did my proposal, I was doing these 3 jobs. So it was just a plan. It wasn't actually going to roll with it. And I was really lucky that I was awarded a NIHR clinical doctoral fellowship. So I can actually have 3 years to actually do it as a PhD project.
You weren't lucky. You worked really hard.
I worked hard.
It's not an easy application. It takes, an average of 1 year to do that application. So that's not luck. That is hard work and dedication.
And I had a lot of help with other people, because doing research is not just on your own. You need a lot of people to help you with, even talking to patients and parents. Especially, my application was 1 month after COVID kicked in full time. And I was like, all the appointments I scheduled for the patient and parents to give me opinion on my project is gone. It literally just cancelled because of COVID now. Everything's on lockdown. You can't have face-to-face meetings. They can't travel. And a lot of people helped me to like, oh, why don't you do this and that? And the parents gave a lot of time to talk to me, and medical team come help. It's like actually give me ideas, refine my project, look at implications. My supervisors helped me to give me ideas. And a lot of people helped me to even give me an interview panel, like 20 people gave me an interview panel. It's a lot of people helping me. So pharmacists need the opportunity. We've got a good candidate here. Let's push her forward. And it's just it's a really hard journey, but it's something that's definitely worth going for, especially if you've got a good idea to actually improve patients' health.
And what's the topic that you're working on?
So I am looking for the azole antifungals, the doses for the children that are undergoing bone marrow transplant. And these antifungals usually don't have a license, and we always thought we are never in range. And we've got high risk of fungal infections, this patient's cohort. But these medicines also interact with cyclosporin that is needed for the transplant. And they can push the cyclosporin levels to a toxic level. At the moment, we're just literally reduced by 20-30%, fingers crossed, everything's okay. But we can now statistically analyze it to say, for sure, not for sure, but I've got a higher chance if you reduce this patient's cohort by maybe 20-30%, because this data is showing for this. And you've got diarrhea, we've got other things we need to do. So just having a better informed dosing guideline would be a useful thing coming out from my PhD project.
And it's amazing. It's on your own patient cohort. Yeah. And you can come through the fellowship with your research and the outcomes to make changes for patients that you're actually looking after on a day-to-day basis. That's very rewarding.
Yeah, and the parents actually come to me with the stories of the struggles, their worries when the patient is being told my organs being affected, the kidneys are being affected, the liver has been affected because of the medicines, the interactions, the anxiety, where they keep on changing your doses. We just don't know what's going to happen. Again, another aspect of my PhD is looking at the doses for immunoglobulins. So can we find a better dose for them? Or do they need to have a lower level that is safe for them? And then the parents share with me that because we haven't got the right dose, they have to come in for IV infusions rather than subcut infusions. And because of that, they need to miss a important day for the other siblings. A school event, but they have to miss it because they have to come in for infusions, the trauma they have, and people coming into my home, and they may say, it's not my home anymore, because I've got lots of different healthcare professions. Even the healthcare professions, they're strangers, people walking into my house every day, different people. And these things, actually, if we can get the doses right and in a evidence base, we may need to avoid all this, or at least granting them a near to normal life that we may, and save the NHS some money.
Yeah, that's always a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. You're also a Pharmacogenetic Champion.
Yes.
For the hospital. What does that mean and what does it involve?
We are now getting an era when we can actually sequence the whole genome and actually sequence snips of the genetic makeup. And everyone's makeup is different, but some people have got a specific gene makeup. They may affect the drug handling. Maybe they metabolize the drug quicker or slower, or some people just would not respond to it at all. Maybe some drug needs to be changed to another form, as from a prodrug to a normal drug, and they don't have the enzymes to metabolize it. It's not going to worthwhile in giving to the child, to the patient. So this is the pharmacogenomics, actually looking at the genetic makeup of that person, and then we can tailor the dose based on the genetic makeup.
The way forward.
Yes. So
exciting.
We have gotten more and more evidence now, and with the commissioning of more genetic testing in NHS, we can now utilize this information to inform us, let's say, if the patient needs to have some sort of HIV treatment back of it, and if you don't have certain enzymes, you're going to metabolize it. So if we know this, this patient and is needing these medicines, we need to do this test, and then we can actually see, this patient may not be suitable because it's not going to metabolize it. For an example, is a therapist. This patient is going to be very slow metabolizer, so this is going to have a huge impact. They're going to have loads of side effects from it. So we need to reduce the dose or not introduce it at all to the patient. So we can have offer different choices, at least inform the patient that this is a genetic makeup, this is what I expect to be, and have a conversation with them.
And you're also, I mean, the list is just endless here.
I don't know if I do that much, I have to say.
What? You've lost it. Literally. You're also working with NHS England in terms of like pharmacogenomics, like a working group.
Yes.
Because I was just going to say that it's great that we're doing all of this, and I assume all of this is being done in the hospital environment, but then how does it link with primary care and GPs being able to understand the tests that come through and the results, and then tailor the dosing and the drugs specifically for the child?
Yeah, so the GE note, so the working group's actually putting together some information leaflets for practicing practitioners to see if you have this certain type of results, what do you expect to see? What are you going to do with those? So I wouldn't expect the GPs to commission the blood test. Sometimes they can do the blood test, but when they have been told about this blood test, what they're going to do. For example, if they prescribe carbamazepine, I've got this mutation, what I'm going to do with this? I'm going to, so you can have this information leaflet at your fingertip. You've got this version where this is basically a very quick summary. If you got this, do this, and that. But if you've got more background information, you can look to have another resource that gives you more a detailed explanation, the rationale behind this. And they all collaborated based on the evidence out there. So we've got a team of us putting this information together, and I'm part of this working group and working with Nicola and other really talented people to put this information in a understandable and practical ways to help practitioners to interpret the results when they have been given those information. I'll make it available because everyone's now having the shared information, isn't it? They have a lot of information they can access to, and it can actually help the patients and the GP to make the right information and right decisions.
That's amazing. You are doing so much. Have I left anything off?
I don't even know I do that much.
I love
I don't do them all in one day, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you don't. But it just demonstrates your love for your job, and it demonstrates your love for pediatrics, because throughout this conversation, you are highlighting gaps. You're highlighting and questioning. You're curious about things that are happening in clinical practice. Where are the loopholes? You know, where do we not have enough evidence? Where are we seeing that our patients and parents are having problems? And what can I do to fix it? You're a problem solver. I love that.
Yeah, I think a lot of pharmacists are problem solvers. We're built that way. We
are built that way, but you do a lot, and that's amazing, and I love that. And your passion about pediatric patients is shining.
Do you know why? Because I'm so lazy. Because if I solve it once and for all, I don't need to do this again.
Okay, well, that's a good motivator. That's a good motivator.
It's I just can't repeat it myself again.
I'm with you on that. I do get very frustrated in the job sometimes when we're doing things that cause inefficiency or make the process 5 times too long. And I would rather take the responsibility to fix it and find an easier, more efficient way of working so that we don't have to continue to waste time, because I want to do a lot. Yeah. I want to achieve a lot. And in order to do that, I need to turn things around.
And it makes your life less boring. You guys have different challenges every day, not the same thing every day. And even if you do the same thing every day, you can see, and especially if you know the system very well, you can see what is the gap in the service that you can develop. And we've got such a good position where we've got a good relationship with the MDT team, with the parents, and then they just give you so much opportunities, and they're so supportive when you have a good idea. Well, if you have a good idea, or just bounce to you, it's just not a good idea, I can tell you why. I can actually refine your ideas and making ideas into projects and into actions.
Yeah, no, I love that. What does the future hold for you? What are your next steps?
I'm not too sure yet, but I'm actually looking into consultancy framework.
Nice.
Yeah, because I really want to incorporate research into my clinical job.
Yeah.
So consulting is one way forward, but also clinical academics is another pathway that I like to pursue as well. No matter what I end up doing, I really want to have research as an integral part of my practice. I just don't want to have these 3 years wasted, all these learning opportunities given to me going down the drain. And B, with what I've seen now, is it just make things so much linear to me. So I can just streamline these things much quicker. Even if I incorporate research into that, I can collect data along the way rather than have to do it like at one big thing. Can just collect things along the way, make it smaller bits things.
You're building your portfolio towards a really nice job title.
Yeah.
And becoming a super specialist, superwoman, more than you already are. But it does give you the structure to follow the pathway. And there's a lot of things that you've done already that you could put into that portfolio.
Exactly.
And you can, add more things in, and it gives you the opportunity to identify gaps that you can fill. Like you said, academia being one of them. I'm kind of the opposite. I need to do more of the research side because I do lots of the academic side.
You do some collaborations.
Yeah. So, I had my PDR only a couple of weeks ago, and Sian is now my manager. And she said, it's time that you think about the consultant pathway. Yes, I am considering it.
Use of your PDR.
Yeah.
This is the right way forward to do a PDR.
Yeah. So we are going to work together to figure out whether or not it's the right pathway for me. But I think it should be. So people watching, listening, watch this space.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the framework itself is a very good helps me to reflect what I've done. And when I did my NIHR fellowship application, I did APP, the Advanced Pharmacy Practice Framework before that. And it really helped me to identify the gaps I need. So when I did the application, it becomes really easy for me to say what are my development opportunities needs to be and what my plan's supposed to be. It also helped me to reflect. I've actually done an awful lot in my job that I don't even think about it before.
Now you've got it on record.
Yeah, I put it on record. And even you say as a PDR, it's really easy to show your managers. Like people say, I'm having a hard time to justify why I'm going to do these courses. This is actually a structured way to help you reflect. Look, this is the gap, and I identified this. Or can you help me identify learning opportunities that I can do within the next year?
Yeah.
It's a very useful way.
There's always growth in pharmacy, and there's definitely always growth in pediatrics.
Yes.
I think I'm going to end episode there. I've got loads of information. We've highlighted so much of your pathway, and you should be really proud of everything that you've achieved because it's, incredible. So thanks so much for joining me for this episode, and look forward to hearing more about your journey later on.
Thank you so much.